Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue watching 90 Day Fiancé. Let's watch the show. As I always say, everything I'm saying is completely speculative. I cannot, and I don't want to, diagnose from afar. So just keep that in mind as I comment on this. Let's watch the show.
I feel horrible. I honestly do.
It was such a 180.
I could have went the rest of my life without watching that right now, honestly.
It was such a 180. I mean, you seemed like you were really happy.
I was not ready to get married that day.
Could you please say, what did you want?
I said to you that I could not get married to you that day. I'm sorry.
So we're back in that place, and it almost seems like as the tension is rising, as they're cornering him more, he's putting up even more walls. And I think that seems like his pattern, is that the way he answered the question at first was a little bit vulnerable. Wasn't very disclosing, but a little bit more than typical. And now that he's being cornered and he's watching the difficult clips from the past, he's putting up all the walls. It's like an emergency, put up all the walls. And he just keeps repeating himself like a politician would and not really answering the question. So that, what did you want? And I'm guessing he hasn't told Natalie that. He says, well, I went down to the river and I just wasn't ready to get married that day. I was just really afraid. Okay, what did you want different? What were you afraid of happening? What did you want to have changed? And Natalie is now asking that question. It's like, so you're saying that you were worried about getting married that day because you wanted things to be different. What did you want different? What do you want different? Because I'm guessing that problem is still present because you haven't told me what the problem was. Now, there's a chance that he doesn't even know. One of the weird things about avoidant attachment, and I don't know if he has this, but I'll just tell you, is that not only do you put up walls to avoid being vulnerable because you're quite sure that you're going to get hurt in very significant ways because you were taught that for your entire childhood, but you also change your brain actually alters, and they've shown this through research, to protect you as well by changing the brain in a couple ways. One is that you cut yourself off from your emotions, because if you're in connection with your emotions neurologically, then you have to do something about them, but you know that no one's going to listen. So what's the point? And so over time, habitually, your brain just learns to not pay attention to your emotions. So when you ask him, Mike, what did you want different? He might not actually know really what he wanted different. He just had a little bit of an inkling that something was wrong. As a metaphor for this experience, there could be all these emotions going on of just like, no, things need to be different. Yes, you love her, but all the things that I would speculate would be down there. But he can just hear it like it's a tiny little voice way off in the distance of like, don't do it. But behind that little voice is a whole slew of emotions and needs and thoughts and feelings. So when you ask him, what were you worried about? He'd be like, he doesn't know. He just knows that he kind of heard something. And so he might be answering that question in a very honest way, a very frustrating way, particularly for Natalie and maybe for us watching. But he might not actually have access to why he did it. He just knows that something was wrong and he knew that he had to do something. The other possibility, the other brain difference for people with avoidant attachment is that they actually don't remember very well, which is another thing that the brain adjusts that it adapts to the scenario that they're in. If the child and later the adult doesn't remember things very well, then you don't have to do anything about it. So, for example, you're 2 years old and all day long you're neglected emotionally, maybe even abused. And the next day you remember everything that happened the previous day in normal detail. And it plagues you and it upsets you and you have emotions and you want to reach out and you say, yesterday you hurt my feelings. And that's a problem. But over time, if you just stop encoding memories, not that you're suppressing the memories, you actually don't even encode events as they're happening to you, then you don't remember bad things happened and you don't have to do anything about it because so the process is, if I encode the memory, then I will remember the memory, which means I will later recall the memory, which will cause an emotion in me, and then I will have to do something about it, but no one's going to listen to me, so what's the point? if I don't encode the memory, then I don't have to go through that process. And this is all unconscious. It's an adaptation that the brain goes through from early emotional neglect. So there's another possibility that when he answers the question, what do you want? What was going through your mind? He might not even remember. And in that moment, he might not even remember why he was having cold feet to begin with in that moment because of the memory issues. The emotional memory just isn't even there because he's not encoding it in the first place. Anyway, let's continue watching.
I was just trying
That's
to be
selfish,
sincere.
bro. That's selfish.
Why you didn't tell me when you
We
left?
did.
Why you
And,
didn't tell me?
Natalie thought I
that you
went
went?
off and cheated on her the night before. And that
Michael,
was
please,
weighing on
I
my
didn't
head.
listen.
Okay, interesting. I don't know if I have this right. So he went off to think, and she thought he cheated on her, and they had a big fight, I'm guessing. And then that's when he called off the wedding. Is that what happened? I thought there was a story like that somewhere. So maybe we'll get some more detail. I don't know if that's what they're saying. Is that what they're saying?
Just really, it felt really strange. Why would you leave? I mean, try to realize it's night. I'm asking Tamara, where is Mike? And she said, I don't know. I'm asking Uncle Bob, where is Mike? And he says, I don't know. Your phone doesn't answer. And I really felt like, but why?
So this is another thing that avoidant attached individuals will do. I can't diagnose them with this, but I'm just going to use this as a jumping off point to educate. And by the way, if you suffer from this, you want to go to a therapist. Avoidant attached people are very unlikely to go to therapy because they avoid. But underneath all that avoidance is an ocean of emotion that wants to come out and will likely come out in various ways. Or people will use alcohol and drugs to suppress the emotions and incur all sorts of problems with that. So anyway, find a therapist that knows what avoidant attachment is and knows how to use corrective experiences to help. But anyway, so this is another classic avoidant attachment thing to do, which is to just disappear. People with avoidant attachment, when they're stressed out, they'll just ghost you because that's what was done to them emotionally when they were 2 years old. And so it just feels natural to them. Plus, in a pinch, so there's a chance that when Mike was sitting there, he's like, I'm anxious. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I want to get married tomorrow. I don't know what to do. And he has an impulse to go talk to her and ask Natalie or have a conversation or something. Or even tell her, look, I need to go to the river. I have a spot that I go to. I just need to go there for a little bit. But to do that, you have to be vulnerable. And you risk getting into a fight. And avoidant people, as a rule, avoid. Because if they avoid, then they avoid the conflict, they avoid the rejection, they avoid the pain. And so he might have an impulse, even thought, it's like, yeah, I probably should tell her I have this special spot next to the river. So it's a catch-22. Their avoidant nature is compelling them to run. Avoidant people will frequently have this. I've worked with people in couples and in individual therapy where every day the avoidant person has this thought of, you need to leave this person. And they'll have that thought for 7 years or 15 years. Every day they have some kind of emotional thing and they have this thought that pops in their head of run away, divorce, move on. You can live on your own. You don't need people. And it's that impulse of like, protect yourself, run. So he's having that impulse, who knows, but speculating. He's having that impulse to run. And he's like, I just need to get away from her. We're kind of stuck in this. I just need to get away. And I just need to think. That's a very frequent avoidant person thing too. It's like, I just need to think, just get away from But he's also thinking, well, I should probably tell her where I'm leaving because I don't want to. But again, in order to do that, you have to be vulnerable. You have to say, I'm suffering right now. I need to go to my happy place. And there is a catch-22. I want to avoid because I need to avoid because that's my nature. But in order to avoid well, I have to be vulnerable to this person. I can't do it. So I'm just going to run. I don't know if that's what Mike did. Now, and then what happened to Natalie, which her attachment injuries are being triggered. And she's a little bit harder to speculate around and hypothesize around her attachment injuries. But she seems to have at least the capacity that when in doubt, he's cheating on me. And that often matches well with the avoidant person. The avoidant person will distance and run away, and the other person will have the other side of the coin, which is a paranoia about being cheated on and about being abandoned. And so they'll often pursue. That's a pursuer distancer thing. But anyway, so Natalie went to some dark places, which is her, attachment injuries being triggered. He eventually came back. It sounds like they get in a big fight, and he's just like, yeah, "It's happening again. I was already questioning this, and now I'm really done. Wedding's off."
Natalie, who do you think Michael cheated on you with?
We did have this conversation when he arrived. I asked him, I didn't ask him where you were. I asked him, were you with someone? The whole situation was too much.
And as I've been saying from the very beginning, and I've been on a long journey with this couple, watching 2 seasons over the past, 6 months maybe. If they just had a couples therapist, this is, from the very beginning, I've been saying their problems are not hard to help with. I've seen way more conflictual couples than the two of them. The kinds of issues they are suffering from are very common. There's not a lot of mystery to it. With a little bit of understanding, with a little bit of self-awareness with the two of them, with a venue for them to talk about their attachment injuries and feel safe to talk about things, this could be solved. It's not hard. And it's just so hard for me to watch in that way. I just have to tell you, it's hard. It's hard to see people suffering when there's a chance, he probably has medical insurance that will pay for therapy. I don't know, but he probably does. So it's tragic, really.
And maybe the situation was also strange because I asked Tamara, where is he? And she said he might went to see someone to have this, bachelor.
Yeah, bachelor party. So, Mike, how do you feel knowing that Natalie often thinks you're cheating on her?
I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
And when avoidant people try to express their needs, they will do so through avoiding. And I'm guessing a lot of you watching right now are, not a majority, but a good number of you are like, oh my God, my past partner or my current partner is like this. They are like Mike. And some of you have even commented below. And it's very frustrating to deal with someone like this, that when they're upset with you, instead of telling you, they will just avoid. They'll just distance themselves emotionally. They'll play video games for 8 hours. They'll hang out with their friends. They'll go into the garage and smoke pot. They will work nonstop. It's just like the person is just like a ghost. They just disappear. And then you learn 6 months later that they have been holding on to this grudge, this resentment this whole time. You're just like, why didn't you just tell me? We could have solved this problem in the beginning. It's very frustrating. It's very hurtful. Because the avoidant person is absolutely sure, based on past experience, that to be direct is to absolutely get rejected. Why be direct? The person, no one's going to care. No one's going to listen. It's a semi-delusional idea, because Natalie seems like she might be able to listen, especially if they had a therapist to help them. But because of the neuronal development happening during a time when that was absolutely not true, where they couldn't trust other people, the way the brain operates, it's in a very avoidant state. So it's possible, again, total speculation, that he was struggling, but he resolved he was going to get married. And then he comes back, and then she starts blasting him with all this anger and jealousy and upsettedness because she's stewing in her own attachment injuries at home, and then she came at him in a really hostile way. We can imagine that. We've seen her be quite hostile with him. And then in that moment, he's like, well, I still want to marry her, but I have no way of communicating to her that I don't like it when she does this to me. And so the avoidant person, they only have one tool. They have a hammer. And so everything is a nail if all you have is a hammer. If all you have is avoidance, and that's your only tool of managing attachment needs and injuries, then you will just use avoidance to communicate everything, because you can't be vulnerable, so you're going to avoid. And one of the ways you can avoid is to say, I don't want to marry you. As a very, very screwed up way of communicating, I don't like the way you talked to me last night. That doesn't make any sense to us, right? Because why would you do that? But I've seen it before. If all you have available to you is to avoid and to break up and to move away, and some of you might have a past partner, some of you actually might even be this way, that whenever there's a problem, the solution to the avoidant person is to run. I don't like the way you talk to me, run. I don't like the way you looked at me, run. I don't like the way our relationship is going, run. I don't like the way I feel around you, run. partially as a self-protection measure, but also partially as a passive aggression of like, I hope you understand, silent treatment is another running. Some people give silent treatment for 3 days. And the hope is that you'll just intuit why I'm giving you the silent treatment. If I'll give you the silent treatment for 3 days, and you better understand why I'm doing this. It's because of X, Y, and Z, and there's a very elaborate reason why they're giving the silent treatment. The other person has no idea usually, because the avoidant person, one, is avoiding the moment, but two, they've avoided in general. And so if your partner is avoiding often, you might really have no idea in general what's going on inside them because, again, they don't trust other people.
6 miles away from the house, right up our road, didn't even go anywhere.
Uncle Bo, he was looking for you. Nobody knew.
But when we go hiking out there, you can't get a radio, there's nothing out there. We're in the middle of the forest.
I just want to know how you would have felt if she would have did that to you. If she left for 4 hours in the middle of the night with no phone service.
Interesting. Jovi with the wisdom. I will say, I didn't show all the clips, but Jovi and Yara seem to be doing really well. And Yara even said to Jovi that he's a great father and he is great to the little child and that she loves him so much. And it just really makes me wonder how this show was edited, because the first 3/4 of this season, there was seemingly no love between the two of them. And now it seems like this couple is the most in love, most possibly functional couple on this season, which is not the way it was edited or portrayed in the beginning. But anyway, Jovi with the wisdom here. How would you feel if Natalie just disappeared with no phone service for several hours? How would you feel about that?
Night before your wedding, I mean, that's pretty tough.
I understand. It's a two-way street. I just needed to step away.
Right. So to ask him that question is to ask him to self-reflect and to know himself. For him to know himself, he has to have people help him know himself. For him to have people help him know himself, he has to trust other people. To trust other people, he has to be self-aware. So you see the catch-22 there. And so when Jovi asks him that very wise question, commend 2 thumbs up to Jovi. I didn't know if I'd ever say that on this show, but 2 thumbs up to Jovi for that question. Mike literally might not know the answer to that question. Just I don't know how to answer that question. Now it's tempting from the outside, and I've seen people comment below that people think Mike is a gaslighter, or he's a psychopath, or he's a deceiver. It's possible, it's there. There are those kinds of people. It's not usually what's happening. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.